Now, Tiger Woods, now that's a guy who knows some secrets. So in this episode of Stock Shot Secrets, I'm going to talk about something that Tiger has gone into great detail about how he went about building a stock shot. And this is the episode where we're going to unveil some of the secrets that he knows so that maybe you can help build your own stock shot. So the big question is this: how do passionate golfers like you and I develop a stock shot day in and day out? A stock shot that's as reliable as the sun coming up in the morning. That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. Welcome to Stock Shot Secrets. So a while back, Tiger Woods had a quote, and you can see this quote here, where he talked about, Golf Digest had asked him, and they said, Tiger, tell us about the process of, how you went about building a swing. How did you go about, redoing your golf swing? I mean, this guy rebuilt his swing 5 different times, at least, probably even more. And how did he go about doing that? And this is the quote that you can see. So first, in this quote, he says, "First, I understand what I need to do. Then it looks better. Then it feels better. Then it performs better in practice. Then on the course. And then finally in a tournament." And you can see that this process is very laid out in a systematic way. So to kick this thing off, I want to pose a question to you. I want to pose a question that if you were to move jobs, right? Let's just say, for example, you're a CFO of a really, really big company, right? Like a big company, let's say like PayPal, right? And you were to move jobs to a different industry. So let's say you go from PayPal and now you're the CFO of PayPal, and now you move to the CFO of a company like Kroger grocery stores or some other big company. How long do you think it would take for you to learn everything there is to know about that job? Right? And even if you were just doing financial planning and you went to another job, or you're a lawyer, or whatever it may be, if you were to move jobs, how long would that take you? My guess, and when we polled our audience and we did this and we talked about it, the usual answer that I think if we could come to an agreement is about 2.5 years. Now, that doesn't mean it takes 2.5 years for you to do good at your job. It just means that it would take you 2.5 years to really understand everything there is to know about that job. And golf is no different, right? The first year in that job, you're probably going to learn, let's say, 60% of the stuff that you need to do. The next year, you're probably going to learn like 30%. And then the final half year is going to be the last 10%. And Nick Faldo, when Nick Faldo rebuilt his swing with David Ledbetter, it was the same process. It took him 2.5 years to him ascending up to be world number 1 so that he could go and win the Masters, because he went to David Ledbetter. He says, "Listen, David, I need to win a major championship." And David's like, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." And as he did that, he went and just continued to climb the world rankings all the way until he won the Masters. So let's dive through this quote with Tiger, and let's really talk about what does it mean. So the first thing he says that I need to understand what it is that I need to do, right? So, and many players, I think, and it's not really any fault of your own, but players don't understand is that teachers, golf teachers, it's kind of like religions, right? Religions are different, right? Christianity is different than Buddhism, which is different than Muslim, which is different than Hindu, which is different than all these things. And even inside those religions, you have differences, right? So Presbyterians are different than Methodists, which are different than Catholics, which are different than non-denominationals. And teachers are the same way, right? There's a way in which the philosophy of the golf room, right? The philosophy in which we are adhering to, we have a way of balances of matchups that need to happen. And if you make those things taint the waters, the matchups don't work, because in golf, it's really, really crazy. 2 wrongs really do make a right. So if a guy is steep, which is wrong, and then he early extends, that makes a right. So the first thing that we need to do as players to really, really get better is we have to understand what it is that you need to do. That is why we spend so much time with our online lessons at the golf room here in Columbus. We spend so much time indoctrinating the student as to what should the video look like, because so many players look at the video and they're like, I don't know what it is that I need to be doing, right? Like they look at it, it'd be like a brain surgeon coming into me and be like, here's the picture of the brain. What do you see? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Looks like a brain to me, right? So we need to make it so that when you're swinging and when you're videotaping your swing, I can look at you and go, hey, what do you see? And you go, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this. Now you might not know how to fix it, but you can at least identify what it is that you need to do. And you've heard me say this a bazillion times. Your stuff is your stuff. And what you do in your swing is what you seem to always be doing. It is the natural inclination of what you will revert back to. So if you were to practice really hard, then go live on a deserted island for 2 months and come back, chances are some of your stuff would start to resurface. And this is kind of what happens, like right now when I'm filming this, it's the spring. So like we've been working on our swings really hard, and then we go play, and in the summer we play a lot and we don't practice as much. So now what ends up happening is because we're not practicing, because we're not filming, because we're playing more, our stuff starts to creep back in. And we have to first understand what is our stuff. Just like we have to understand with our character, right? We need to understand, like, these are the things I'm really good at, and these are the things that I need to get better at. And that's okay. No one is perfect, right? So we need to understand what it is that we need to do in our swing so that now you can understand how to fix the stuff in your swing. And when you understand what it is that you need to do, the satisfaction is that when you're hitting it poorly, you never have to say, man, I'm hitting it bad. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I'm hitting it bad. The reason you're hitting it bad is the same reason because it's the same reason that it's always the same reason. Like when you top it, shank it, hook it, slice it, fat it, chunk it, pull it, whatever it is, it's the same thing because your stuff is your stuff, right? Now, another question for you to think about. Right? Why is it that Tiger Woods, when he's going through this quote, like, why did he leave Butch Harmon? I mean, if you guys, can remember back in the day, Tiger Woods works with Butch Harmon, becomes #1 player in the world, wins majors by a lot. I don't know what it was at Pebble Beach, but like he won at Pebble Beach by, I think he shot like 18 under par or something and won by like 15, something nuts, right? But why is it that when he walks off the course and he talks to Butch Harmon, he goes, man, like, there's things I need to change. And Butch is like, Tiger, like, there's nothing I'm going to change, man. Like, your swing's impeccable. Your game's impeccable. It's incredible. And Tiger's like, no, I need to feel, there's things I need to work on. Because the truth is that in Tiger's personality, and I've never personally met Tiger, but just reading through this quote and reading through some of his story, Tiger loves the challenge of getting better. Right? So you hear us talk about like this journey up Stockshot Mountain. And at the top of the mountain is the town of Stockshotville. And at the bottom of the mountain is Beaterville. Now, on the way up the mountain, there's these plateaus. And like when you get to the first plateau, the view when you look out over the mountain, because you're a little bit higher on the mountain, when you look down onto the town, the view is way better. And then you keep moving up and the view gets better and better and better. And that's the same thing that happens to your handicap. And the truth is that like those little plateaus are the things in your game that you're trying to work on, right? Like first your alignment in your grip, then your backswing, then your transition, then your finish. Then you learn how to play with that amount of skill up to the level of new skill that you have. You learn how to perform, and now you're at the top of the mountain. And the truth is that when you get to the top of the mountain and you shoot like 85, and let's say you scale the mountain, that helps you learn how to shoot 78. You get up there and you're like, oh my gosh, the view up here is amazing down on the town. Like it's so much better than the bottom of the mountain. But then you turn around and you look and you go, son of a biscuit, there's another mountain I have to go up. Right? And that's where you go from 78 to 72 or 73 or 74. And then you scale that mountain. And then you go up and you go, man, this view is amazing. And then you go, oh my gosh, there's another mountain. And you just keep climbing this mountain up to the top. So for Tiger and Butch had climbed the mountain. And they had gone through the entire mountain range. And Tiger's like, I need to keep climbing mountains because if I'm not climbing, I feel like I'm not progressing. Right? Like Scotty Scheffler, there was just an article out with Scotty Scheffler and his coach. And his coach said completely opposite, right? But it was actually the same thing. But what Scotty has done with that is a different reaction than Tiger's. Nothing against Tiger, but they ask Scotty's coach and they go, "What are you working on?" And he goes, "We're working on nothing. We're working on him playing golf." Right? Now that's the same thing that Butch Harmon told Tiger, but Tiger's like, "Well, I got to go. I got to go do something else." So then he goes to Hank Haney. And then he climbs all of these different mountains with a different religion, if you will, with different matchups. And he gets to the top. And then he goes, "I need to change." And Hank's like, "I think you're doing everything that I want perfectly. So, we're at the top of the mountain." He goes, "Okay, I'm leaving." And he goes and finds another coach. And then he scales that mountain. And then he scales another mountain. So he keeps doing this over and over and over because he wants to go through this journey of what's happening, right? So first we have to understand what it is in our swing that we need to do because our stuff is our stuff. Then as he does that, right, he says, well, now it looks better, right? So how many times have you practiced your swing and you're like, man, I understand what I need to do, right? Like I got a new student assessment at the golf room, or I got a new student assessment online at the golf room everywhere, and my coach went through this and we went through what it is. So now I start to practice and it's like, man, that feels terrible, but it looks amazing, right? And that's very normal. You always, you might have heard me say, if you're trying to make a swing change and it's the first time you're doing it and it feels really good and you're not using feedback, you're probably doing it wrong. You think you're making a change. You're not making a change at all. So the question is now, if I understand what it is that I need to be doing, how do I make my swing look better? And it looks better. There's two ways of doing it, right? The first way is doing it through the art of slow motion, or what the word would be, Tai Chi, right? So this would be the analogy of with my daughter Ren, and we were trying to get her to write a letter, right? And we do the dots on the lines, right? We're dotting the paper, and I give her a piece of paper and it's got the dots of an A. So she tries to trace the A with the dots, but she's doing it and she's like, "Rah!" And she's all over the place. And I'm like, "Sweetheart, good try, but that is not an A. That is a scribble." Right? So she's like, "Daddy, I can't do it. This is too hard," right? So I go, okay, well, if you can't trace the A slowly, meaning AKA trace the golf swing slowly, and it should look perfect. We do not want ratchet A's. We want a perfect A, right? And this is what we would be called block practice. So then if she can't do that, I go, okay, babe, let me give you a trace so you can trace the A and not color outside the lines. Now, chances are that's going to feel really weird if her A is like a gigantic scribble. She's going to be like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, this feels nuts." And I'm going to go, "Yeah, but that's how an A is." And that's the same way in which we need to train our swing, right? Just because it feels wrong doesn't mean it's wrong. If it feels different, it's probably right. Right? And that's how you're actually going to make changes, right? This morning in the gym, I was doing this. And my trainer was like, "Okay, let's do this amount of pull-ups, and make sure when you're doing it, you go real slow, and then you go to a full stretch, and then pull yourself up." And I was like, "Aaron, dude, if I do it like that, I'm gonna be able to do half of the reps that you want." He goes, "That's fine." I go, "Right, but I'm gonna fail." And he goes, "Yeah, but that's how you get better." And I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I'm saying this stuff to you guys on a podcast, and I even need to be reminded of this, right? So we need to make it so that when we practice our swing, first when we're on this journey to building a stock shot, we first understand what it is that we need to do. After we do that, now we need to be able to make it look better on camera. So that is why filming your swing is paramount. It is a non-negotiable. Whether you think it feels good or feels bad, it doesn't matter. It matters how the camera looks, right? If you are watching this on YouTube and you look at me this is what my face looks like it's no different, right? So a picture is worth 1,000 words. The camera doesn't add 10 pounds. This is just what you got, right? So it is what it is, and we need to make sure that the video looks correct. So then after he does this, right, and you're practicing, you go, "Okay, I understand it. Now it feels better." Now after you do that, or now it looks better, now we need to go into it feels better. So how does that happen? Well, that happens with reps, right? The only way to shortcut that process is to do it a bunch. The problem is that most amateurs cut themselves short, and they do it and they go, "This feels wrong," and then they stop. like ball 5, ball 6, and they're like, because remember, 2 wrongs make a right. So now if they're swinging it shallow and let's say they're hitting it fat, which is very common for the guy who's over the top and then flips it. Now he's shallow and he hits behind it. He goes, this isn't right. I'm not hitting it solid. And it's like, no. Now you're shallow. You're just releasing it too early, which is making the club bottom out too early. Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Stock Shot Secrets podcast. If you are enjoying it, be sure to like this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can always see when they're coming out. And most importantly, if you would be so kind to be able to share this podcast with other passionate golfers who are trying to get better and build stock shots, because it grows through you sharing it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now back to Stock Shot Secrets. You just have to work on your release habit, right? So it's like you just got to keep going and going and going, and providing that your swing is doing the right thing with feedback, then you are doing the right thing, right? So it's kind of what it would be like me sitting on this side of the table and my wife's on the other side, and going back, let's say Rowan, right? My middle daughter, she's starting to learn how to walk, right? And as a coach, it would be something like if I dropped her, I go, okay, Rowan, like walk to mommy, and she walks and she tries to walk and then she falls. It's not like I just go, oh, looks like she's never going to walk. You should try to just crawl the rest of your life, right? I would never say that, because Mom and I, Leslie and I, were both like, okay, let's try again. And we put her down and she starts to walk. And now she goes a little further. And then we put her down again and she walks even a little further. And then she put her down. We keep doing it until finally she gets over there and and Leslie holds her and we're like, oh my gosh, way to go. You made it, right? The problem is that amateur golfers stop too short of the finish line to not see the project through. You have to go through the end, right? There's a story of a guy in Colorado, and he was drilling down to the bottom in Colorado because he heard that in Colorado there was all this oil. So he buys all the rigs, he does all the stuff, and he drills down into Colorado, and he does it for like a year and a half. I forget what the guy's name is, but he keeps going. And after a year and a half, he's like, I can't do it, right? So for the next half year, he tries to sell all of his stuff, and he finds a guy in the East Coast who was willing to buy all the product. He sells the product. The guy comes back down to Colorado. He scans and surveys the land, and he goes, this is actually where the oil is. So he keeps drilling, and after 1 week, he falls into all of this oil and becomes a bazillionaire. And the last thing you want to do is stop short of the goal line because you think it doesn't feel right. Right? You have to keep going. And when you start to match up these feelings, right? Because it's all about the matchups inside, like the religion, if you will, right? When you match up those feelings, now you start to feel it better. And you're like, yeah, this is great. Now, when you do that and the matchups start to happen and the feeling happens, right? He then goes on to say, then it performs better in practice. Now, the reason it then starts to form better in practice is because now that it starts to feel better, your tempo and your rhythm and your tension starts to like level out. When you first make a swing change, like you're like super tense, you're like, oh my gosh, this feels terrible. It feels like an unfolded lawn chair, right? But as you continue to do it and you feel it and you're looking better and you're like, yeah, this is great. Like I'm on my way. I'm moving up the mountain. Then what happens is like your tension and your arms start to get looser and you start to swing. And now you start to make contact and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is it. It's starting to perform better. You're like, I'm seeing a stock shot, stock shot, stock shot, stock shot. And you're like, I think I'm getting it. So now what ends up happening is then after you do all that stuff, now you have to then take it to the golf course, which is a different beast. You know, like hitting golf balls at the golf room is amazing, right? Like we've got all this technology. We've got ways so that you can feel it, right? And you're trying to read the numbers, read the ball flight, read the video. And like you can kind of sometimes it's almost like parlaying an NFL game where you bet on 3 games and you win all 3. It's like, that's great. Chances are you're probably going to do 2 or 3. So it's like, hey, my shot shape was good, my numbers were good, but the video was trash. Or you go, my video was good, my shot shape was good, but what's with the numbers? Or it's like, okay, the numbers were good, except for one maybe, and the video was good, but the shot shape was bad. So it's like, it's hard to get all 3 of those, right? But when you start to do this thing where it's doing better in practice, then it goes to the course. So the question is, why is it that players can hit balls on the range and they're like, man, this is great. And then they go to the course 5 minutes later, and they go, wow, I just put it in that dude's pool. Why is that? What changed? The only thing that changed is you. You changed. Because now you have basically an environment that is requiring you to perform, right? So too many players go and they basically, if you think about it, if you think about like the Ohio State Buckeyes, imagine if Ohio State, like they practiced and the quarterback and the wide receivers were throwing passes back and forth. They were just block practice throwing, like throw, right? Like cone drill, cone drill, cone drill, cone drill, cone drill. But they never created a way to scrimmage to put themselves under stress. And the only thing they did was they just played the games on Saturday. And Saturday was the first competition. That's what happens with you on the range. You practice and you go, like they go throw, and you go, hey, great shot, great shot, great shot, great shot. But you never actually put yourself in the environment of a game that doesn't have a consequence to try it out. And I don't blame you, right? Like, I had a story last week where I talked to Leslie and I go, hey, sweetheart, like the kids are getting a little older. Like, do you think now, like if my buddy Ben like texts me and to go play golf on Saturday morning at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I'm done by 10:30, like, you know, we rip around the course, like I could do that? She goes, yeah, I think we're getting pretty close. Probably another 2 years. And I'm like, oh man, right? So the truth is that when I get to play golf, it's like an event. Right? Like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm playing golf today. This is amazing. I talk about golf all the time. I have a golf club in my hands, but I'm never on a golf course where I'm actually keeping score, because usually if I'm on a golf course, I'm helping someone, right? So I get it that when you go play golf, it matters, because it's like, man, I got 1 day a week to play on Saturday. That's the day my wife lets me, right? So the last thing you want to do is like go out there and like goof around and try things. You might try it on the first hole or second hole, and then you go, and maybe it doesn't work, and you go, I'll just go back to what I know, right? And you go back into that safety blanket, right? You don't, as Bender said in our previous episodes, like you don't get ugly enough. So the point being is that you need to give yourself an opportunity so that when you go on a course, what if you went on a course at like 6 o'clock at night on a Sunday for 45 minutes and you went to a tee box in the fairway and there was no one out there, no one to judge you. You dropped a bunch of balls and you hit and you tried to make the thing that you know that you understand, and you know that it looks better, and you know now that it feels better, and you made that move on a course, and you like actually set up a camera maybe and like balance it on your bag or balance it on the cart. I used to balance cameras on carts all the time, right? And you video it on the course. You go, is this the same swing that I was making in my practice, like at the golf room or wherever it may be? And you'll probably see like, man, that doesn't look the same. And then you go, okay, now I'm going to make a swing. I'm going to do this, as Mike said, and I'm going to get ugly. I'm going to make a swing that's super exaggerated and film it on the course, right? Where I'm going to like literally hit a ball on the fairway with a noodle or a cone or a swing guide or whatever it may be, and you're going to make that move so it looks correct on a course, right? And that's the next evolution, and a lot of players miss that boat. So now that you can go through, and as Tiger said, like, it starts to, first I understand what I need to do, then it looks better, then it feels better, then it performs better in practice, then it's on a golf course, right, without consequence, then you can do it in a tournament. So for Tiger, obviously his tournament is different than our tournament. His tournament's like the Masters. Wouldn't that be nice? Our tournament is like member, going on a dude's trip with my buddies, like trying to beat my father-in-law, like whatever your tournament is that creates stress, that's what now you go, okay, now I can take it to the golf course. Because the truth is that when you're playing golf, and you've heard me say this, you have to pay attention to an intention. And intention is singular. It's one thing. And the things that you need to pay attention to are something inside your five senses: sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing, right? So you have to be over the golf ball and you're literally listening to the sound of the birds. That's what you're paying attention to. Let's just say that was your intention. And the swing that you've been developing, when you understand it and it looks better and it feels better and it performs better and now it's on the course, That's there. So that is why on like Instagram, right? And my handle at Kyle Morris Golf TGR on Instagram, you do that. And finally, when you're doing that, right? Like you're trying to make it so that when you do it, you can do it subconsciously in the middle of the night. And on Instagram, I'm always saying, like, we don't do it till we do it right. We do it till we can't do it wrong. And that's a big difference. Just because you did it 3 times does not mean you're ready to move on, right? This is the whole reason why we built like the 21-day stock shot challenge, is because we want to basically show through that 21 days what are the levels, the plateaus going from Beaterville to Stock Shotville. What are the plateaus to build the stock shot? And it's almost like we have a hot air balloon and we're going up the mountain each day. And each day you get to like send in videos to see, hey, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And then you get to day 21 and we go, okay, good job. It's way better. But now we need to kind of take it back down and we need to really hone in, let's say, the first part of your backswing, right? And that's what we're trying to do, because we need to make it so that when you do your backswing, it's subconscious and it's perfect. You don't want to ever have to think on a golf course, because if you're thinking in a golf course logically through your prefrontal cortex, which is 40 messages a second, you will suck. And it's not fun. That is why when you have 3 cocktails, you start to play good. But on the 5th cocktail, it gets a little rough, right? Because now you get a little dizzy, right? So that's what we're trying to do. And then that allows you to take it to the golf course to where now you can do it under pressure when it matters. And that's what this is after. But that's a process, right? And if it's just like saying going to the plateau of like, let's just say for you guys that know like the door frame drill, right? That same process is what happens at the door frame drill, then the wall drill, then the transition drill, then impact drill, then hitting and matching, then folding, and then short game and putting. So like it's a journey, man. And that's okay, right? We want to have, you're trying to pursue a perfect golf swing in an imperfect sport. No one's golf swing is perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect to play amazing. So it doesn't mean that it's going to take you 2.5 years to get better. It means it takes 2.5 years for you, when you're working at it, to really scale like Tiger did all of the mountains to where you go, hey, I was an 85, I shoot 85. After 2.5 years, I now shoot 74, and you know, like this is kind of the talent level that God's given me. So like I'm maximizing what I've got, and I think now I just got to kind of just manage my stuff, right? And that's great. So it doesn't mean it takes 2.5 years to get better. It just means it takes 2.5 years to where you have full understanding and inventory of yourself, how to get better, what the drills are, which is why, right? Like we don't want at the golf room, we don't want any welfare students. Our goal is to make it so that you ultimately are your own coach, and we can coach ourselves out of a job, right? I do not want you dependent. If you have to go in a lesson and you have to look at the coach and say, did I do it? That means that you don't understand. That means that you don't know what the video should look like, and that's a problem, right? So we talk about that like on YouTube, on these other videos, like what to look for in a swing video, right? Or Stock Shot Club. You can find that webinar in there too. We want to make it so that when you look at a video, you know what you're looking at. Just like we want to make it like if you're looking at a P&L or a balance sheet, it doesn't look like Chinese. We want to make it so that you can understand what it is. So when you look at your video, you can understand what it is, kind of like a balance sheet, and you're like, I don't know what to do to fix it, but I know that there's some issues, right? And that's where you can have a mentor, just like a tour guide walking up the mountain. The tour guide can help navigating the way. All right? So if we go back to Tiger's quote, just to reiterate, so maybe you can continue to think and reflect on it. First, I understand what I need to do. Then it looks better. Then it feels better. Then it performs better in practice. Then on the course, and then finally in the tournament. So Tiger Woods is pretty good. So I think we should all take some advice from Tiger and follow this script on our way to building stock shots. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Stock Shot Secrets. Now, as a listener of Stock Shot Secrets, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get better. So if you were to go to stockshotclub.com, I'm going to give you 7 days free access where you can send us your video and we will give you personalized individual attention as to what you need to do so that you can start building stock shots. So just go to stockshotclub.com and register there. We'll give you 7 days free where you can try it. And then if we like it, you can stay inside the Stock Shot Club where we can become your coach and walk with you for your entire journey. Thank you so much. And be sure to go visit stockshotclub.com.